Alright, I'm gonna do some work on this my rat rod. I had the engine covered because it did rain a couple of days, but I ended up finding this gas tank off of an old riding mower we had. So I'm gonna now use this as a gas tank for this. So my idea is I would like this spot here, the fill neck, to kind of stick out like somewhere here maybe. So once I figure something out, I'll get back to you guys. Alright, so I got the cap on. Obviously, right now it's just hanging. This I could just kind of, mount up like this. Try to find a good spot to mount it. But the way I cut the hole is I just took an angle grinder. Used the grinding wheel, cut some X's. And then once I cut it all around, I just used the sanding disc to just clean around it. So that's how that is. Now I just got to figure out a way to mount it up. But yeah, I just thought this would give it a cool look for it. Now, minus the brackets and stuff, another thing I want to figure out is the steering, and then obviously the axle and the gearing stuff first. For the RATROD go-kart, I need a steering wheel. I found this steering wheel. As you see, there's a hole here, and then like a nut and bolt will go through here, and that's what would hold the steering wheel in. And luckily I have this bin of just random stuff, and I have two of these. There was a curved piece, but I cut it off. So now I got some of my steering. So I ended up drilling out the hole, and I put this nut in. I couldn't, or bolt in, I couldn't find a nut, so I'm going to try to grind this down flat and then put a cotter pin. It's actually in pretty tight already. So I'm just going to kind of take an angle grinder, flatten this out, and drill through it and just do a cotter pin for that. So the steering, some of it is done. I'm going to see, because this is the piece I cut off, I'm going to see if it'll slide in here, because if it slides in there, there's this bar here, and I could just finish welding that bar onto this and then use that as a, the holder there. So I'm working on the steering again. I brought the steering wheel out, and I brought that little piece out, and it does fit. So I have that just setting in there now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out where this kind of lands, drill a hole, and then I'm thinking slide this through the hole and into this, and then drill a hole through both this and bolt those together, so that if I need to take the body off, I could still take everything off. Alright, so I got the steering figured out. What I did was I found this bar here, and it fit good. This pipe fit good in it. So I drilled a big hole and like a smaller hole where it wedges on. So now I'll just have to weld this on the inside and out. I just bolted the bar onto the existing bar, and it does work. I do have it sitting kind of far up, but it looks right there from like when you're standing out here. So now I could figure out like a dash and stuff like that now that that's there. The steering, I would say, is complete. Luckily I was able to use all the original stuff and plus some more of the stuff I found, because this bar here actually came off of this frame as well. So this frame keeps on giving. Now what I'm gonna do is I think I'm gonna work on a dash. I'd like to, I know I'm kind of all over the place, but I'd like to do the dash. Alright, so I'm in the garage. I measured out where kind of the dash should be. So what I did was I got this just black piece of metal here, and I drew out lines. So it's 23, and then I went 5 just so I could kind of do something with the bottom so it's not flat. I could kind of like curve it or something like that. So I'm going to cut this out and just kind of set it in. This is the key I have. What I did was, I think I've mentioned it a couple of times, but I got an old flathead and made that the key, so it, you know, while it's on the dash, it looks like it's a old flathead. But so the key I'll figure out a good spot for that. And the good thing is this is pretty thick. Like, it's not too thick, but it's a good thickness, so I'm not too concerned about the weight of this like warping the hole. All right guys, so I just, as you see, got it setting on here. Obviously I'll probably trace out, I'll probably put this flat, trace this out, and then I could know where to cut then. I could possibly leave this so that if I want, I could put a windshield on. Be a pretty small windshield, but I mean, usually rat rods are chopped. Before tacking it on, I should probably figure out where I want the key. I also gotta sit in here and see if, you know, my shins will hit that. I'm gonna sit about right here in the steering wheel. My arms are pretty straight, but again, it doesn't matter. Oh, so we're actually good. We don't have to really, the dash is good. So I trimmed off the sides and I cut this piece that was angled down, so it's sitting a little lower. It's actually touching the steering wheel. It actually comes up a bit, that's why there's those gaps. But I put the key in, and just to show you guys, it's starting to look like a dash. So all right guys, so I pulled the dash out. I'm gonna do some more like detailing to it. So as you see, I got the key here. I marked here because I got this light switch that I'm gonna put in there. I got a oil pressure gauge that I'm gonna put somewhere, and then I do have this gauge here. It's a fuel gauge. I'm thinking about putting that somewhere, and then kind of in the center I'll measure out where I could put like a speedometer maybe. So that's what I'm thinking. Alright, so here's what I have for the dash. I just took apart my gauges and just glued them on, and I glued the needles to sit in a certain spot. I do got to figure out something for the speedometer, but as of right now I'm going to let this sit and dry. Right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out the body work, and then hopefully this has enough time to dry, and then I could start working on putting this in. Before I get a little too ahead of myself, I want to kind of show you where I'm at. I took the fuel tank out for now because I'm going to be welding this side piece up. As you see, I cleaned it up. So now it's time to weld that piece on. So here's where I'm at on this side. I got a couple of tacks in. I got like 3 over here, and then I started to go along here. I am going to have to do a little work over here, but like as you see, some touches and some don't, so I'm going to have to try to move the metal a bit. But I'm just going to keep doing that until I got all of it tack welded, and then I'll do some finishing welds. Alright guys, so as you see, I got it all welded. I cleaned it up a little, so now I got to just make the other side. And before I do that, I want to kind of show you kind of how I do it, or how I did it on that side at least. So what I did was I used this piece of metal that I actually cut off of this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this piece off. Like, I cut as close as I can with this, and then I hold it up, measure out like how I did this side, and then I'll cut this off. And then what I do is I slowly bend. I hold this end up to this, and I try to slowly match this, and then I just slowly curve it until it like looks right and fits right. Alright guys, so as you see, I got this side tacked on. This side's a little thinner, which is fine because I got to trim these up anyhow, but I just wanted to kind of show you where we're at. So I'm going to finish welding this, clean this up, and then trim this up as well, figure out where I want to trim it. Alright guys, so I got the dash bolted in. So far it's not fully done. As you see, I got to trim up here a bit. This kind of sticks up a bit, but what I did was the piece that I cut off of here, I have these bolted on, and then as you see I got some spot welds up top. I cleaned them up a bit, but I also like here and here welded some, so it's not just that. I trimmed these pieces. Oh, I bent that while I was getting in and out, but I'll have to hammer that down. But I trimmed these pieces so my shoulders could fit and not have any issues, so I trimmed them up. And so before it sat out to like here, so I trimmed it up and I just kept the curve. So I did that on both sides, and it just makes it easier to get in and out now. I have this side tacked on. This is what I'm thinking. So I'm gonna have it kind of line up even on this side, and then obviously here it's going to sit on, and I'm going to weld here and weld here and weld along the side. There is going to be this gap here, but I think I'm going to get a piece of metal to go across here too to also strengthen it some, or I can make a visor and I have this to go on as well, and this will be stronger than just this. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm going to have to do the same on that side. Alright, so I got the A-pillars in, and now I'm going to start making a visor. I got this piece of wheelbarrow here, and as you see I cut a chunk out, and that's going to be the visor. I'm going to have to obviously trim it up and, you know, make it fit better, but so far this is what I got. I'm probably going to have it sit a little lower, and I'm going to make it where I could bolt it in like on the side of these bed frames. So I figured if I bolt this in, it'll kind of hold the window in and stuff like that. So that's my thought at least, but I just wanted to kind of give you this, or show you this before I go. Alright, so I trimmed up and bolted this on. So here's how it looks in the front. I'm going to have to just, I'm going to probably trim this to make it a little shorter, and then go with a piece across the top of this. And the good thing is I'll be able to tilt it if I wanted. But so what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to try to find a good spot to mark this over here and on that side, and then try to go along this, and then so this will be like so, but it'll be shorter. So I cut out this top piece. This is how it's going to look now once it's all done. So I'm going to bring the welder out. I still got to weld these nuts in, but I just wanted to kind of show you where I'm at with this. So this is how it's going to sit, and that's how it's going to look. So alright guys, there's the front visor. I got a little carried away and started to clean the front, and I stopped myself before I got too ahead of myself. As you see, I got to clean that and whatever. But I want to do the windows now, and mainly the back window, because I'd like to get the back window done so I could do the fuel tank. But yeah, I just wanted to show you guys where I'm at. I cleaned this edge so it's not as sharp. So that's where we're at, and that's how the front end's looking. But yeah, so right now I'm going to draw out what I think would look good as windows for the sides and the back, and then cut them out. Alright guys, so as you see, I cut out the windows, I cut out the back window, and as you see, these are a lot shorter than what I had, so it's going to have that chopped look. And what I did was, when I taped this piece, I used a straight edge to line it up here. So it stopped raining for a bit, so I threw the engine on, I didn't bolt it on, I just sat it on because I just wanted to see how it looks, and I think it's looking pretty cool. I do like how the engine does look so massive compared to the front of the body. Again, next step is to fully mount that, and then I guess while I'm here I could try to run a fuel line and hook up the key and get this going. But yeah, so this thing is looking pretty cool. Alright guys, so one thing I did literally just now is I took that mini bike tire off and I put it on the front end, and luckily it turns out they're the same tire. So I'm actually going to look up the tire size and get a new inner tube and possibly rubber, because I know this one here, there's some cracking here, and this one does not hold air. I just pumped it up. So I got the engine mounted on. It's on there. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire up the key, and I'm going to move these two switches. So this switch here is for the coil, and this here is for this fuel regulator thing, or fuel solenoid or whatever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually move these to the dash somewhere. I do got a box of wires and stuff. I'm going to use some of this stuff, and hopefully I could wire it and make it look pretty neat. I also did get an electric fuel pump. I looked up how much PSI this carburetor likes, and I think it said between like 2 and 5. So I found a fuel pump that's like kind of rated for that. So right now I brought out my fuel line and my fuel pump, and I also brought out my fuse box. I'm thinking about what I'll do is I'll probably set it like this high, but I'll probably have it inside obviously. But I figured what I could do is I could just use this spot on the outside to figure out like where the holes have to be, and then go from the inside and wire it. Or I could possibly leave it out. So here's how it looks. It's a very easy and simple thing. So obviously the negative, positive, and then I believe all of these will be positive and all of these will be negative, and then you just put the fuses in. And then the good thing is if you look at the case, they leave this little square area here. It actually comes with some labels. So if like, let's say I do like the fuel pump, I could put fuel. Alright guys, so I took off the engine, I got it sitting there, and this is where I'm thinking about mounting it. I gotta just take these two out, and I gotta finish drilling down here. So it's a bit messy right now, but this is just so I could test it and get it where I need to get it. So far I have the key hooked to where it needs to be, and I angled it down, and I have it in this fuse, and I have the light in the fuse. Before I do too much with wiring and stuff, I want to test if this works. So an easy way to test it is turn on the lights. So I pulled the switch and the lights are on. Now that works, and now I'll turn it over to see if it works as well. So that does. As you see, I hooked the fuel pump up, well, right there, and I ran the fuel line along the side of the body, and it runs up and goes to the carb. Tomorrow I'll finish wiring up some things, and then test it out, you know, see if it can run under its own, on its own, and idle, and figure out where to go from there. Alright guys, so I got it all wired up, and this yellow wire I'm going to change to green, just so everything looks neat. And obviously I'm going to neaten up the wires. Right now I'm just going to test it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to disconnect this hose, put it in the gas can, and then see if the fuel pump's working. Open this here, put it like this, and flip. Yep, that's the switch. And yep, it's coming out. Now I'll hook this back up, and then we'll test it out. So I'm gonna flip both switches. That one's the kill, and this is the fuel, as you could hear it. And then I'll turn the key. Alright guys, so I took the air cleaner off. I actually went in the carburetor and cleaned it a bit, and I found out that the needle was off of the floats. So I wasn't, even though that I was pulling gas here, I wasn't getting gas in because the needle was stuck in and it was off the float. So I put that in, and I just took some carb cleaner and I went through and just sprayed it down. So now flip the kill switch, the fuel. Hopefully next video of this, I'm hoping that I get the axle in and the 90 degrees, so I could go from that way to this way. So but so far so good. I hope you guys like this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and as always, hope you enjoyed your cruise down the Lashment Road.